The Vikings got their get back on day 2 of joint practices with the Cleveland Browns, but now we got a game to play. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for my hashtag everydayers that listen to the Locked On Vikings podcast each and every day. I appreciate you all so very much. I appreciate all of you who've been sticking with me all summer, and I equally appreciate those of you who are coming in for the first time, who are new. Hello, welcome. My name is Luke. You can find the show wherever you find your favorite podcast. Just search out Locked On Vikings. You can find it on the SiriusXM app. By the way, if you search Vikings on that app, you can also find live broadcasts of Vikings games, like the one they're going to play this Saturday. You can also find this show on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Today on the show, I'll recap the goings-on at Browns joint practices a little bit. Usually we would be covering that in a little bit more detail. We've had some other stuff going on that we had to talk about, so we had to deal with that. But now we can focus, now that we've sort of hashed those conversations out, we can focus on what's been going on at joint practices and what we're looking for in the upcoming Vikings-Browns preseason game, which will come this Saturday, and an entry into the Everyman series coming up later in the show as well. But first things first, what's been going on at joint practices besides despair and a cloud of doom rolling over the Minnesota Vikings organization? So yesterday, or I should say Wednesday, at the joint practices, the Vikings seem to have a lot of rough news. A lot of the reports coming out of camp, the camp notebooks by people like Alec Lewis or Will Ragatz or Matthew Collar, who were there, were not pleased. They were not happy. They were not. They were getting kind of smoked. Even players that usually would play pretty well. I mean, of course, you have Jordan Addison getting hurt. You've got this JJ McCarthy news. So yesterday I talked about it. I said, yeah, I'll give you a pass for that. You can have an off day. It's okay. It's fine. Have an off day. Things woke up a little bit here in the Thursday session of the joint practice with all kinds of really cool highlights from the Vikings. I mean, there's this back and forth between Justin Jefferson and their corner, Martin Emerson. He had this highlight that's going crazy in Cleveland, the Cleveland world, where he had this rep against Justin Jefferson where he totally locked him down. A lot of jawing, a lot of chatting back and forth, a lot of the quotes. Emerson telling Justin Jefferson, "Oh, you're not catching the ball," and Jefferson being like, "Watch the film. I'm catching all of these." Gets a touchdown on him later in the same red zone period, and says, "Okay, where are you at now? 2-3. Like, you want to come talk now? 2-3." All this really, jawing back and forth. After the practice, Justin Jefferson goes up on the podium for a press conference, and they're like, "So how you doing with this Emerson cat?" And he's like, "Love competing against him, right? That's just the way competition is." Look. If you've been around high-level athletes, really intense high-level athletes, this will make a lot of sense to you. On the field, we are at war, right? We're going to say a lot to each other. We're going to say we don't like each other, but once practice is over, hey, you got a couple licks, I got a couple licks, good stuff. So it was a really good war. And I think that, this Emerson guy, I don't know a lot about him, but Emerson in particular probably gets to feel pretty good about himself after, going toe-to-toe with Jefferson, but I do think that Jefferson got some pretty intense highlights. But it was away from Jefferson where a lot of some of the other good moments happened. Sam Darnold, absolutely dialing. He had a really rough day on Wednesday. He came back with a vengeance. A great pass to Josh Oliver. That's a highlight that's going around the Minnesota world, and on the Vikings official Twitter account, they posted it. This, contested kind of get it up over your head grab. Very exciting stuff. But it was really on the defensive side where a lot of the most exciting things happened for the Vikings. And in particular, in the secondary, with guys like Dwight McGlothern. There's one, I think the Vikings account posted, said push-ups on the line, 1 rep. And McGlothern had just blanketed the guy. Pass went to nowhere. He got another interception elsewhere. Really great day for him on the joint practices. And that goes a long way. Kevin O'Connell has he's playing the starters more in preseason, so maybe the approach is a little bit different, but these are intense practices. This is real competition, right? These are people that you haven't been going against all day long, and these are as live as reps in practice get. It's kind of like having a good preseason game to have a good joint practice. So kind of log that in as we cover this like rat race at the bottom of the cornerback depth chart of who gets that kind of 5th, 6th spot after you account for Shaq Griffin, Byron Murphy, Caleb Evans, and these guys that are like that are clearly in the roster lock echelon of things. Who else is it going to be as a guy like McLaughlin maybe rises, guys like Duke Shelley fall a little bit further down that part of the depth chart. So I think there's a lot more to like today. It sounds like there was a lot more to like today. In similar news, Kevin O'Connell at the podium after joint practices, or maybe it was before, said that they got positive news on Jordan Addison, by the way. He was carted off with an ankle thing, walking boot, crutches. Just by that all looks really bad, but O'Connell has insisted, nope, we got positive news on him. We don't think he's going to miss extended time, maybe a few days. He probably wasn't going to play on Saturday in the preseason game anyways, so ideally he is back practicing afterwards, but I wouldn't be surprised because ankles can nag if you really rush them. I wouldn't be surprised if they just shut him down and said, you've done enough this camp, you're ready to go, we'll just shut you down till week 1. I wouldn't be surprised at that. And by the way, they're not going to tell us what they're doing. They're just going to do that. And then we're going to be like left to speculate about like, well, what if he's on PUP? And we'll see a million stupid like headlines. But I don't know. I guess, again, abundance of caution. And the same kind of personality trait that leads you to approach the J.J. McCarthy knee surgery in that same way, where it's, we're doing the best thing for him. We're doing the abundance of caution thing. We want to do what's best for his long-term health. And yeah, he's going to miss his rookie year, but that's worth it so that he doesn't get like degenerative knee issues later in life. Which is both morally and probably equity-wise, like probably a good choice. One that's really, really hard to argue against unless you just, you're going to terminally ill and you have 2 months left to live. Then, well, I guess I'm sorry for you. The other news, Blake Cashman injured his finger, had to get surgery there, and when the stitches heal, he'll be back. So that won't be a long-term injury either, but another day, another Viking getting surgery, another injury thing. It's funny, like this would be totally unremarkable. I mean, it would tell you, okay, no Blake Cashman, right? And for however many days that he's out, that represents major opportunity for Kamu Grugier-Hill, for Brian Asamoah, for Dallas Gant, and guys that move up the depth chart, right, with Blake Cashman out. So it does affect the rise and fall on the depth chart a little bit just by giving people more opportunities with the ones, but it would otherwise be unremarkable if we weren't like a little bit sensitive right now. We're a little sore, okay? Oh, I shouldn't use the word sore. Let me get out of this. We'll talk about next the preseason game. What's coming up? What should we be looking for? And what have the storylines become now that the texture of the team has changed so much in the last couple of days? And then an Everyman series entry after that. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Gametime, the best place to find last-minute tickets, whether you are trying to get to a Twins game when the weather is good. Maybe wait, see if it's going to be sunny today, and then if it is, you can pop on to Gametime and grab a ticket last minute. You can save a bunch of money buying last minute. It's not irresponsible. It's a strategy. You can save up to 60% buying last minute for not just sporting events, but concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is. And you can also buy ahead of time at a normal person time. If you're trying to get NFL games, you can get tickets to the season opener or just a home opener against San Francisco. You can get tickets to the London game if you're doing that, like the Packers game later in the year. Or road games, whatever. You can find it all at Gametime. You can find really cool flash sales and very good deals all the time. So check back often. If you don't find something that you're happy with, you might find something else like a week later and really like monitor the market and you're going to find something good. The game time guarantee also means that if you find the same row and sections listed somewhere else at a lower price, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. That's a guarantee, but it's also a challenge. Go prove them wrong. And then you will get a good credit. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. If you are fantasy drafting this weekend, go check out Locked On Fantasy Football with Vinny Iyer. Get all your ducks in a row and get that edge you've been looking for so that you can absolutely mercilessly crush everybody at your office. Moving on, the preseason game is coming up against the Cleveland Browns, and there are a lot of interesting things to watch. I think before the meniscus tear surgery, JJ McCarthy bummed us all out, that probably would have been the thing everybody's going and watching for. And I wouldn't have to be like, so what's the major storylines at the Browns game? It's everybody's just going to say we're just watching to see if JJ McCarthy is good. But the quarterback room has changed now. So what happens here? I don't know how much Sam Darnold we're going to see. I'm actually curious about this. There's like two directions we could go, and we're going to find out which direction they're going this week, and that'll tell us what's going to happen next week as well. Because like it could be that, okay, the starters played one drive, they got what they needed, they got their joint practices that were intense, and everybody, and physical, very physical, so physical that O'Connell had to like go over to Kevin Stefanski and be like, hey, can we like have a conversation here? So if they had that physical of joint practices, maybe you don't want to put the starters into a game as well. Let their bodies rest. Let the threes take it home and duke it out for roster spots. That's how the preseason has been approached in previous years by Kevin O'Connell, but he's never played the starters in previous years, so we're already in uncharted territory there. So was it just, hey, okay, let's get their feet wet and then we'll go back to what we were normally doing, or are they going to go with a more traditional preseason strategy an allocation of snaps where the first game is a warm-up of one drive, the second game is a quarter, and then the third game is like a full-on dress rehearsal. You play the whole half. And then back in the day when there was 4 games, the fourth one would be the starters don't play at all. You treat it as a bye week for them, and it's all about, figuring out your roster bubble. That was the way it used to work, right? Y'all remember that. Now we'll see how much Sam Darnold there is, right? So that's one thing, and that was always going to be interesting. But without JJ McCarthy soaking up all the reps like he was supposed to, now you have Nick Mullins and Jaren Hall. And you have this interesting question of what do we do with these cats now? Nick Mullins making the roster feels very likely, right? It feels like, I guess of course it's not a guarantee. Like he could, totally have a preseason meltdown and make you think more about it, but it would take that kind of thing. It feels like status quo is going to be upheld there. And he'll probably get a lot of reps now. He didn't get any reps last week, but they were very clear that it's like because he knows the system and doesn't need them. All these guys are either, Sam Darnold, who is new, or 2 young quarterbacks. We want to get them the practice, and Nick Mullins is fine. Which kind of tells us, yeah, he's not going to play, but we're just going to put him on the roster still, and we're just going to let him relax. So now, after you get any Sam Darnold, if you get it at all, is it going? It sounds like it's going to be a little more Nick Mullins and a lot more Jaren Hall. And now this QB battle, which I don't know if it was meant to be a true QB battle. It was formally a QB battle. It was when I talked about as a QB battle. Hey, Nick Mullins has this QB3 job. Can Jaren Hall take it from him? Can he go out there and prove and take it from him? And maybe the singular thing that could contribute most to that would be Nick Mullins' bozo ball doing something idiotic and making you go, oh my God, that's right. This guy's kind of frustrating. If Nick Mullins doesn't play, he does not have an opportunity to do that. So honestly, the best thing for Nick Mullins making this job is to sit on the bench as the guy that knows the system and can be a quality backup quarterback, and we're going to put you on the 53, and nobody's going to change that. Even if Jaren Hall plays reasonable, efficient football, but we've got guys that are more important to us, right? But if Mullins goes out there and messes up, and Jaren Hall plays well, it can raise this question in a more serious way than it's been raised thus far. But those things have to happen. I don't know how likely they are, but that would be something that you're watching for right now. I think in the running back room, and a little bit in the cornerback room, you are kind of competing against unknown waiver claim A. It's kind of like in political polls when they will compare you to generic Democrat and you lose to that guy. So generic running back is in the running for being part of the Vikings roster because the Raiders game went poorly for Ty Chandler, who had, a couple of drops, and for Kenny Wong, who had that touchdown, looked very fast, but had these catastrophes in pass pro and had a misread in a run play and stuff. Had all these blemishes in his game. That's what we've been seeing since he joined in 2021. Seeing those patterns repeat themselves is a little bit like, is this guy RB2? Is this guy RB3? And are they still winning versus generic running back A? They have, both of them will probably get some run. And I doubt you just sit Ty Chandler, right? Both of them will play significant time. And while they're still fending off Myles Gaskin, who I thought had the best day against the Raiders, and Dwayne McBride is also in the mix. If you see mistakes from Ty Chandler and Kenny Nwangwu, mistakes are very high leverage for them. So for them, I don't think they necessarily need to go out there. It's not like Jaren Hall where they need to go out there and do something remarkable that makes you change your mind about what you already thought. What they need to do is avoid a mistake that makes you change your mind about what you already thought. If they can go out there and play a couple of clean games, I'm going to care a lot less about the Raiders game. If they can go out there and just make your blocks properly, make your reads properly, 4 yards in a cloud of dust, get something that's reasonable. Even if you get tackled in the backfield a lot, but it's not your fault, all that stuff's fine. No fumbles, no blown blocks, no drops. Don't do anything that calls my attention to you in a bad way. And that suddenly generic running back A starts to fade away into the distance, and we're actually, running the real candidates here. I am starting to the more I think about it, maybe I've just overthought one preseason game, but as of this juncture, Myles Gaskin as a roster dark horse is starting to become a serious idea. So I think he has the opportunity to go do that. If he can do everything right. And if the other guys don't, and if you're the guy that's doing everything right, guess what? You're the guy that's going to get the job. And I think you kind of see that same thing at cornerback as well. Like I said, the Dwight McGlothern's versus the guys like Nahshon Wright. Very curious to see him in some action now. Very curious to see McGlothern. I might pay a little bit more attention to him. I think Gabe Murphy is still hurt, but that kind of brings me to the bottom part of the D line, which is where the most intrigue is, right? So what if Jaren Hall accidentally upsets, Nick Mullins? It's something to watch for. If you're watching the QBs, that's the narrative of it. That's the context of it. So there you go. Where, and with the running backs and all that, where we're like, okay, who makes the mistakes? That's the guy that probably loses a job they had a grasp on. But the real intrigue is at the bottom of that D line, where you had so many guys absolutely explode the whole fourth quarter of that Raiders game. From Jalen Redmond, who is a name I'm very happy to have repeated a whole bunch all week long and really touted his performance. I want to see him repeat that. I want to see Bill Richter repeat what he did. I want to see Owen Porter repeat what he did. Levi Drake Rodriguez getting in there. I want to see him repeat what he did. There's a lot of names that built some momentum. And not only are they all in a rat race with each other over one, maybe two roster spots, but the guys that were sitting in those roster spots, like Jaquelin Roy, or a lot of people in their 53s, me too, had Gabe Murphy. If those guys have now fallen behind all these dudes that showed out a whole bunch, not only do you have a rat race here, but you're also leaving a bunch of people in the dust that are now needing to go make plays and make the team. I don't know how much status quo, for somebody like Jaquelin Roy, right? He was not the best defensive tackle on the field at the time that he was on the field. And I do think that some third teamers outplayed him, even after adjusting for the differences in level of competition. But he's the draft pick. He's the guy that they're excited about. He's the guy, he's still got a reputation that upholds him a little bit. So I don't know exactly how much that affects his roster odds yet. But if the pattern continues, you start to ask questions you weren't asking 3 weeks ago. That is what these things do. Also, I kind of want to see a little bit more of Will Reichard, outside. I believe they're on grass in Cleveland. So let's see if we, I want to see more than 2 reps and one of them got blocked. Will Reichard, I think he made all of his kicks in joint practices. I believe he's genuinely missed 3 times in all of camp, which is a pretty good record. It's not pretty, it's really good. That's fantastic kicking. But I would love to see some more like high pressure situations and stuff there as well, if you want to talk special teams. And we do have a punting battle still going on as well, although I do think Ryan Wright's kind of running away with that one as it stands. So we have a lot to kind of watch for here as the roster starts to shake out and, spots start to be a little bit less ambiguous. But we also have a lot of the Everyman series left to go over. We still got a handful of players. So the entry for Andrew Van Ginkel is coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even some people who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to your role and might be perfect for you. 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So when you post your job on LinkedIn, you are posting to a fairly exclusive batch of people. And look, LinkedIn understands that your business, whether it's a small business that you own or whether you are working for a bigger firm, like in an HR department or something, every business is unique and has unique needs, unique culture, and is a different kind of fit for each person. LinkedIn understands that. So they've got all kinds of tools that will help you write a proper job description, that will help you narrow down large pools of candidates into the people that are right for your company and your company only, and helps you kind of customize that experience to make sure that you're finding a real fit. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Rock Valley, Iowa is a one stoplight town, as Andrew Van Ginkel describes it, full of farming equipment manufacturers, and it has as many churches as it does restaurants. It's about an hour's drive southeast of Sioux Falls. It is a town that is so small that their high school had to share a football team with another high school. It'd take you about an hour to walk it end to end, just one of these little stops on your road trip to somewhere else. And on that combined half and half football team was a scrawny high school quarterback that was good enough at scrambling and was a dynamic enough athlete to think, maybe I could play FBS football someday. That day would not come out of Rock Valley, Iowa, the 4,000 person town. He was not very good at throwing the ball, pretty good scrambler, but kind of scrawny and not really anything else. Georgia's not exactly going to come a-calling for you. And ultimately, the school that would take him, which was South Dakota, wanted him to move to defensive end. Now, Van Ginkel gets the same description as a lot of these NFL players get when you find articles that talk to their high school or college coaches. You got to remember, the NFL is filled with remarkable players. And to get to the NFL, the sort of grindstone mentality is a prerequisite. But in high school, it stands out. So you hear a lot of high school coaches say the same courses over and over again, and Van Ginkel is no exception. He works as hard as anybody on the field. He's humble. He's even in Miami, when he was with the Dolphins, they say he was kind of a soft-spoken workhorse kind of grinder type, hashtag lunch pail guy, if you will. And you really test that humility when you say, yeah, we'll take you, but you're going to redshirt at the University of South Dakota and you're going to change positions. You better start eating. That'll really test that humility. And we've had stories of other people who have made it to the same place, which is the Minnesota Vikings, that have gone, no, I won't do that position change, and have chosen to go to a different school or something like that. But Van Ginkel took the deal. And that summer and that year, as he was redshirting, he put on 20, 30 pounds. He was like 200 pounds when he showed up at South Dakota. So 220, 230. That's a little bit better for an edge rusher, right? The classic thing, waking up at 3 a.m. because that's when your metabolism is the slowest to like eat, and trying to just like pack on as much as he could, approaching it with the same work ethic every single day. And that kind of intensity, that no stone unturned, that what can I be doing right now that's a little more, gets him, come his second year, to that size. And not to mention scout team, learning the position, and finding a way to put that athleticism to better use than it was put to when he was a scrambling quarterback that kind of couldn't throw. Could throw for the high school level, but not good enough for the college level. Come his second year at South Dakota, he was way better. And he was really starting to show out enough to where you can start to think maybe FBS is in the cards here. Maybe I am a Division I college ball, real school kind of player. But the problem was this was 2016. Most of the guys we're talking about were in college post-COVID, where the transfer portal is a thing and the rules are different. But when we talk about an older veteran like Van Ginkel, he couldn't do that. The way it used to work, if you don't remember, if you weren't paying attention back then, if you transferred from South Dakota to, say, the Big Ten, you would have to sit out a year. Because Andrew Van Ginkel had used his redshirt year learning how to be an edge rusher, he would have wasted a valuable year of eligibility basically sitting out on his transfer year. So instead, you go down a league. You don't have to skip a year if you go from South Dakota to, say, JUCO. Iowa Western Community College. Another JUCO player on the Vikings. I think that makes, I think we're up to 6. You go there, and you can keep playing for that year, and then you can go from the JUCO ranks and be a JUCO transfer into the FBS. So this was the plan. We're going to do 1 year at Iowa Western. We're going to show out there so well that the big schools come a-calling. And then when we decide we're going to go to Wisconsin, stick around in the Midwest, that's going to be where he plays the last 2 years of his college career. I think 2 years was just enough time for Van Ginkel to show what he could do and the potential. It times out perfectly. That gives you 3 years of football playing experience at the position before you actually take a snap at Wisconsin. So you shouldn't be too raw. You're rawer than people who've been playing edge rusher since they were in 8th grade. But you're not exactly in a Chaz Surratt situation where you're going into your senior year of college and this will be your second year at the position, right? It's third year of the position. And we're just starting out at Wisconsin for 2 years there. And he had a redshirt year, so he'll have 2 years of eligibility left. It's really the nick of time to get draft stock. It's not great draft stock. He still is only a 5th round pick, but he got himself into the NFL. The goal was FBS. The way he talked about it, when if you were to ask him on the recruiting trail, the goal was, I want to play at a big college. We're now beyond that. We've graduated from this big college. Now it's time for the Miami Dolphins. 2019. This is Brian Flores' first year. Everybody in that 2015 class, that 2019 class, by the way, that 2019 Dolphins team is such a watershed moment in the history of that franchise, because it's the year that Stephen Ross allegedly tried to pay off Brian Flores to tank. It's the year that the GM very clearly was tanking the roster, trading Minkah Fitzpatrick away was kind of the big smoking gun there, and getting rid of veterans and stuff, and essentially forcing you in with nobody. It's a brutal year, and the horror stories about it, especially things that have come to light in the lawsuit, are paint a picture of a place that is not fun to be a part of. And to go from the I've achieved my dream, I'm playing for, the University of Wisconsin Badgers, that's Big Ten, this is real, true college football, to go from that, get excited to be in the NFL, and then when you show up to the NFL, you're greeted with that mess. That kind of sucks. In the 2020, the COVID year, Van Ginkel really starts to show out by making these hero plays, and they're all over the place. They're not the same thing over and over again, right? There's a defensive touchdown versus Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. There's a block punt versus the Chargers. A goal line forced fumble against the Broncos. This is the NFL he wanted. This is the way he started to kind of take things seriously once he got to Wisconsin. He realized the NFL was in his sights, and he started working a little harder so that he could go strip Melvin Gordon on the goal line in a major game for the Broncos. And this is the kind of guy that Brian Flores falls in love with. The guy that is not only, a workhorse, humble, yes coach, no coach kind of guy, but is willing and able to do everything for you. We know how much versatility matters to him. Being able to drop back into coverage, pick six Sam Darnold in practice that way, and having this ever-growing skill set, and damn quick study too for having changed positions right before college and being that, that good at it kind of right off the bat. That's the kind of guy that Brian Flores goes out and brings with him when he comes to Minnesota when this guy becomes a free agent. There's a lot of former Dolphins that have come and gone through visits or come and gone through free agency without Flores sniffing around him, but not Andrew Van Ginkel. And to that, we gink. I will see you all for the postcast. If after the Cleveland Browns game, go to the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube page. We'll be live there with Sam Ekstrom, Luke Inman, Ron Johnson, and myself. Afterwards, the audio will be put up on this feed, so if you're an audio listener, you can listen to it there. But if you want to come live chat, see all of our flabbergasted facial expressions at whatever horrors Nick Mullins brings about, you can do that. I will see you all for that. And as always, Skull.